Being on a hit TV show may come with fame and fortune, but stars are also required to act a certain way while filming. From not ad-libbing their lines to being clean-shaven, the Big Bang Theory cast had a pretty tight script to follow on set. Though their styles somewhat evolve over the course of 12 seasons, the characters of The Big Bang Theory ultimately maintain their looks throughout the show's entire run. This means that for over a decade, certain cast members were forced to don restrictive clothing for the sake of their craft.
Ooh, this is nice.
It's only one color.
In Jessica Radloff's The Big Bang Theory, the definitive inside story of the epic hit series, Simon Helberg recalled needing assistance and some butter on his legs in order to pull up Howard's ultra-tight jeans. But the pants weren't the only aspect of Howard's look that caused Helberg discomfort. He said, "And then to get all those sharp belt buckles so close to so many vulnerable parts, plus the tight pants and the pin on my turtleneck that would jam into my neck, I was always trying to get used to being smothered by my own wardrobe." Another cast member who suffered through a bothersome wardrobe was Mayim Bialik, who played Amy. On the show, Amy was known for her bulky, buttoned-up layers, knee-length skirts, and tights. Bialik told Radloff, "I was always sweating because Amy had so many layers on and didn't really have a sense of different seasons. It was always sweater weather for her, even when everybody else was in short sleeves or tank tops." Many of the actors who starred in The Big Bang Theory rock beards in real life, though their characters were clean-shaven. Therefore, if they grew one between seasons, it was shaved upon returning to set to maintain continuity. The only exception came when preparing to shoot the first episode of Season 3, in which the guys returned from a 3-month-long expedition at the North Pole with massive beards. They were actually asked to grow out their facial hair over the break, but fake beards ended up being used. It was also preferred that they didn't do anything crazy to their hair, with the styles established in Season 1 becoming synonymous with the characters. Audiences came to know and love Howard's Beatles-esque do and Penny's long blonde locks, for example. However, before they started shooting Season 8, Kaylee Cuoco did the unthinkable. She chopped her hair into a pixie cut without telling anyone. She told Radloff, "Something needed to shake up. I was bored and sick of the hair." The show's creator, Chuck Lorre, was shocked when he saw Cuoco's new hairstyle. For him, Penny's long hair was part of who she was, he explained. The audience had become infatuated with the character, and not just the character's behavior and flaws and strengths, but in how the character looked. They became iconic, and to disregard that audience attachment was a mistake, and I witnessed it firsthand.
I think hair is hair, it grows back, it's not a big deal.
Lorre also banned the cast from pulling pranks after one that was attempted by Johnny Galecki and Cuoco went horribly wrong. While filming a dinner scene for Season 6, Episode 16, the two planned to pull a prank that involved Galecki fake punching Cuoco and her falling off her chair. When she got up from the floor, however, Cuoco was met with horrified looks rather than the laughter she anticipated. Cuoco recalled the incident in Radloff's book, telling the author, "I came up from the table saying, 'How fun was that?' only to realize I had blood coming down my face as if I was in a boxing match." Turns out Cuoco accidentally got hit in the head by the chair, which certainly wasn't part of the prank. As a result, she had to visit a plastic surgeon to receive stitches. She went on to add, "The next day on set, there were all these signs saying things like, 'No more jokes, no more roughhousing.' I mean, we thought it was so funny, but no one else did." Director Mark Sandrowski had to strategically film Cuoco from a certain angle so that her injury wasn't visible on camera. While the actors on sitcoms like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia were encouraged to ad-lib lines, this wasn't the case with The Big Bang Theory. Melissa Rauch, who played Bernadette, told HuffPost Live, "Big Bang is very tightly scripted. Because we shoot in front of a live audience, it's basically like doing a filmed piece of theater, really." Plus, she and her castmates didn't often feel the need to put their own spin on things, as they believed the scripts were already top-notch. Rauch added, "I love it so much, but you don't want to mess with what they write because it's almost like this beautiful concerto that you don't want to mess up one note of." Because The Big Bang Theory was tightly scripted, and because he had the most scientifically dense monologues to memorize, Jim Parsons, who played Sheldon, wrote down every single line on index cards, which he always had with him. He told Radloff, "There wasn't a set piece that didn't have my scripts or note cards in it. It was only on a few rare occasions that dialogue was changed by writers during a taping. One such instance came while shooting a scene between Bob Newhart, who played Professor Proton, and Cuoco. When one of Newhart's lines wasn't landing with the studio audience, he suggested Cuoco say it instead. It was a move that proved successful." From quantum mechanics to super asymmetry, many of the conversations on The Big Bang Theory often revolve around science. However, the actors were largely clueless as to the meaning of the words in the script. Still, they had to make it sound believable. This was especially difficult for Parsons, with Sheldon having the largest amount of jargon-packed monologues.
fundamental problem with elementary quantum mechanical formalism is that the Fourier transform extends to minus infinity in time.
An anxious person, Parsons recalled in Radloff's book that he gave up drinking for the first 9 years of filming to give his full focus to perfecting his intricate lines. He said, "It's not that anything got out of hand, but I knew that there was work ahead and I wanted to be ready for it." Cuoco said that Parsons' role required a lot of intense focus, adding, "I can't imagine the stress I'm sure the show put on him, because there was so much riding on his shoulders and so much to memorize. It was such a specific character that I can kind of see why he needed to put drinking aside. That's a lot to take on." Later in the series, when Sheldon begins dating Amy, Parsons had less scientific dialogue to memorize, much to his relief. He said, "I had relationship stuff to talk about, and while Sheldon might do it awkwardly, it wasn't always a science hoop to jump through verbally." Aside from Galecki, who starred in Roseanne, and Cuoco, who was a cast member on 8 Simple Rules, the rest of the original cast members of The Big Bang Theory were virtually unknown in Hollywood. So when the show quickly took off and fans were clamoring to see them at their very first Comic-Con appearance, it was a mind-blowing taste of fame. In fact, the experience was so intoxicating that it briefly went to the head of Kunal Nair, who played Raj. Co-creators Laurie and Bill Prady made it their mission to ensure that everyone stayed humble, calling Nair into their office for an important conversation. In Radloff's book, Laurie said, "The point of the meeting was to say, breathe, slow down, don't make any big decisions right now, and to remind him that the ensemble was everything. I said, listen, God willing, this is a long journey, and the journey is one that should be made as an ensemble, not as here's my solo career." The cast also helped keep each other grounded by escaping the hustle and bustle of Hollywood together. They enjoyed regular getaways at San Isidro Ranch, located in the foothills of Montecito. Parsons told Radloff, "We were able to do things like that as a group and not cause a lot of attention and just enjoy each other's company." They also bonded over their shared love of ping pong, which they played on set during breaks.
Mainly, I met so many wonderful people here that will be my friends for life.
The cast of The Big Bang Theory had to promote their project via talk shows, junkets, conventions, and more, a requirement of any actor on a popular television show. Oftentimes, especially when they were asked to travel internationally, these press tours were a ton of fun and didn't feel like work. Galecki, Hellberg, and Nair have particularly fond memories of their promotional trip to Brazil. In Radloff's book, Nair said, "They figured out which hotel we were in, and hundreds of people showed up. We went out on our balcony and waved at everyone and said a few words. It was like being the Queen of England. I couldn't believe it. I found it very heartwarming." Still, as nice as it was to feel love from fans of the show, doing press wasn't always so enjoyable. Galecki admitted to Radloff that he often felt nervous speaking in front of people as himself and not having the fictional shield of Leonard to hide behind. He said, "I wouldn't sleep for 2 weeks before I had to do Letterman. I always loved it after because he's such a hero of mine, but that was especially nerve-wracking." Though many TV sitcoms have stopped using laugh tracks, roars of laughter can be heard during certain scenes on The Big Bang Theory because it was filmed in front of a live studio audience.
It's still a lot of fun.
On one hand, having a crowd present was helpful because instant feedback was received if something wasn't working. However, having fans present for certain iconic moments, such as when Sheldon smacks Amy's behind as punishment for pretending to be sick, added stress. Originally, the scene was supposed to take place off camera. In Radloff's book, Bialik said, "I was very relieved because doing that in front of people is so awkward. I think my mom might have been there, as well as my dad." At the very last minute, it was decided that the entire scene should take place on camera, in front of the audience. Parsons spoke about it in a discussion with the Paley Center for Media.
It was, I would say, one of the hardest things I've ever had to do because I found it tremendously amusing.
He was also somewhat annoyed because he had no time to practice his facial expressions throughout the week. Director Mark Sandrowski told Radloff, "Jim and Mayim could not believe they were doing this, but they were so funny together and the audience went nuts." When Cuoco and Galecki began dating in 2008, the two made a self-imposed rule to keep their status private from the public, at least for a little while. They explained to Radloff that they didn't want to ruin viewers' image of Leonard and Penny, who weren't an official item at that point. Given the fact that the rapid-fire dissemination of news on social media wasn't what it is today, they were able to fly under the radar. However, after some time, their self-imposed rule began to take a toll. Galecki told Radloff, "I think one of the things that created a chasm between us was my strict policies of privacy, and Kaylee being very, very open about her life. I was very uncomfortable with being public about it, and I think that hurt Kaylee's feelings a little bit, and I can understand that." They ended things after 2 years with nothing but mutual respect for one another and remained friends throughout their time filming The Big Bang Theory and beyond. Galecki even attended Cuoco's wedding to Carl Cook in 2018.